Hmm.
Definitely want your opinion on like how students should go about asking for belt promotions, or if
Yeah,
they should ask for belt promotions. So
right.
there's a really
Yeah,
big distinction, I think, asking
for sure.
versus just or not asking. Should you ask
Yeah,
about belt promotions?
yeah. All right. So a couple of things, and you may need to cut me off if I keep going, if I answer your question. So Um, I do not think that students should ever ask for belt promotions. And I also don't think, for example, like when I started doing jujitsu, and what I loved about jujitsu was the lack of the traditional martial arts formality, which I think is important. And I think, I used to always kind of go back to, as Americans, we always want to know like when we can get this and this and this. And hey, just because I'm doing this and I'm showing up means that I get something in return. Where I
Hmm.
look at it like, if we really going to go like from a traditional perspective on it, is that the teacher, the instructor, the coach, the professor is the Um, so I'll tell. This is how I'll say it. So when I used to coach collegiate track and field and cross country, I remember overhearing some of my athletes one time at practice say, "Coach likes so and so better than he does
Hmm.
us." And I remember, like, I really felt like I prided myself on never showing favoritism to
Hmm.
anybody. And so at the next practice, I always used to make announcements before practice started, and then the next practice, during announcements, I said, "Hey, I want to address something that I overheard yesterday, and I didn't mention any of them by name." And I said, "But it was, I heard someone say in front of a group of teammates that I show favoritism to one particular athlete." And I said, "I just want to tell you that the athlete that you're talking about, that I spend the most time with, is the one that seeks the most information and is always trying to find out, like, what do I need to do in order to get better, is super receptive to constructive criticism, and and then spends time with me discussing our training program and
Hmm.
what they need to do to get better for not just the next race, but the regional championship and the national championship."
Hmm.
And so it's not that I am communicating more with them because I seek them out, or that I'm constantly giving them pats on the back. You just are making, a visual, um, you're making an assumption based on something that you see visually but that
Yeah.
you don't overhear. And this is a person that is, the only thing on their, that all they do is they go to class and they come to practice. That's all they do. Where everybody else, they have other things on their mind, and he's not even necessarily talented than the rest of the team. It's just that he works that much harder. And
Hmm.
so I gave him more of my energy, and he received more of my feedback because he saw it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, like, I feel like, like, even in our relationship, Alec, like, you've been really helpful to me, um, through the years with the technical side of jujitsu. I mean, I don't expect you to call me up and say, "Hey, Sergi, you need any help with anything right now?" Like, that's on
Hmm.
me. And Marcio Petipano, he gave me my black belt, and it's sort of the same. Like, I don't have this expectation that he should call me and check on me, uh, from a jujitsu perspective.
The,
Like,
the
I'm the
the
student,
concierge service here.
right? I'm the
Like.
student, and that's on me in order to seek
Mhm.
that out. And honestly, like, and I know we're talking about promotions here, so like, I promote based on, and I know that that's a separate question, but in order for me to answer the first one, I got to talk about this one a little bit. So I promote based on a lot of different things, and one of them for sure is technical proficiency. But for
Mhm.
example, if I have a super athletic guy that comes in and he's maybe a wrestler and he's really, really good and he's really athletic, but you know what I mean, for a wrestler, that doesn't mean he's good at jujitsu.
Mhm.
That means he's getting by on his athleticism, or maybe he's getting by also on his wrestling. So the expectations are going to be different
Mhm.
for him than the other guy.
Yeah.
So I'll also take into the other guy that's not. I'll also take into consideration like consistency, and consistency is different for everybody else. Not, that doesn't mean consistency like them coming to class every single day. That means consistency to the person that comes to class 8 times per month. I mean, maybe they come twice a week. Maybe they come once a week, 1 week, and then 3 times a week the next week. But ultimately, they are consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And but because I understand for the most part, everybody's got a life outside of jiu-jitsu too. But then also, it's like, all right, if you're one of the more sort of consistently inconsistent ones, then it's going to take a little bit longer to get promoted.
Yeah.
And so I think that, in all honesty, too, loyalty and enthusiasm for the team and for the school, that goes a long way in supporting the school. Those are all things that are taken into consideration. And I've had, I would say over the years that I've been teaching, and this is the truth, and I've been teaching since I was a blue belt, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years. So since I've been doing this, I have had students that I know, I must make an assumption based on what I see, but they were all happy, giggly, smiley when I was giving out promotions on certain days, congratulating teammates, high-fiving everybody. They didn't get a stripe on their belt or they didn't get a promotion. Well, obviously they thought they did, because when they walked off the mat, they were either the first one out of the door, or they weren't shaking anybody's hands or giving high fives, and they didn't have a smile on their face. And honestly, attitude and effort is everything. Attitude and effort are always going to be the end-all be-all. So if I even see something like that, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I remember it the next time. Until that, like, oh, even if you are disappointed because you assumed you were entitled to something or you were going to get something, you should be able to have enough self-control to be happy for everybody else that's there when it's their day, because your day will come too. And again, maybe there's a reason. I don't want to get anything at all that I don't deserve. I've never asked for a promotion. It's not the same either as asking for a promotion at work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's not the same thing. And I've heard people use that as a comparison. It is not the same thing. This is entirely different. And to me, this is more when it comes to, I'm talking about belt promotions in jiu-jitsu, which is one of the, I mean, I wonder how many people would be doing jiu-jitsu if we didn't have belts. I mean, I think that it would be different. We can't necessarily, compartmentalize that and put a label percentage on it, but
That'd be a good
there would be
percentage.
less people. I know people that get black belts and quit.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got a black belt, in all honesty, I felt like I was just starting. And it's hard for me too. I mean, and I don't I don't like even falling back on my age in regards to my technical skill. But when I train with younger guys, when I train with you, I mean, you're just better than I am. And it's like, and when I lose in competition, it sucks. To know this, like, man, there are people out there, like, I'm a black belt, like, there are people out there that are that much better than me. Like, I just want to keep getting better. And even at my age, I want to keep getting better. But I never feel like I'm entitled to anything at all. And I only wanted, so for example, like Marcio, I competed 3 months after I got my black belt, because I didn't really believe that I should have been a black belt. And it wasn't that I didn't trust him, it was just I didn't have the confidence. So I was like, I have to prove it to myself that I really do belong here. And so, like, jiu-jitsu is a different martial art than other martial arts. It's a different sport than other sports, combat-based sports.
Yeah.
Man, the thing that makes jiu-jitsu so special is, like, you remember, Alec, the days when you met a purple belt and it was like, oh my gosh, like, that guy's a purple belt.
Yeah.
Like, there
It was
were no
like
purple belts.
they're
When I
just better.
started.
Like you're like I don't know what this guy's doing.
It's just magic, just like.
Yeah, like a purple belt was a big deal in the early 2000s. So I don't think that I would say that asking for a belt or a promotion is no different than being at a tennis tournament or a football game or a track meet or any sport, and walking up to the referees or the judges or whatever and saying, hey, can I get one of those trophies too? I don't think there's any difference. I think it cheapens it when you ask. I think it really, and then if you get it, which does happen in jiu-jitsu now, because there's money involved with associations and things like that, and guys are being promoted when they shouldn't be promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, man, that's a tough one for me. I've only had, so going back to what I was saying is like I've noticed that with a handful of students over the years, but I can kind of understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of try and go by this nonverbal communication and never bringing up promotions with my students at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so if they sort of try and do one of those punish me with silence type deal because their attitude is a certain way, like I just ignore it. I
Yeah.
don't give it any energy at all. Over the years, I've only had one student that's ever commented on a belt promotion, and um, he never made it all the way with me.
Mm-hmm.
The writing was on the wall with that too, by the way. So it was, I mean,
You're like, all right, well, this guy's
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. See you later. It's all good. Yeah,
And every
I'm not
instructor,
that guy. I would be the wrong instructor for that for sure.
yeah. I mean, every instructor has their own like kind of requirements. I remember like me and John, like, man, we would never get belts out. Like, are you still there? I can't hear you,
Yeah,
Sergi. Oh, yeah,
I'm here. Yep.
we would never get belts out. And it wasn't because we didn't want to give the belt. It was just because, we had like, we want you to have this technique down. If you didn't have this
Yeah.
technique down, it's like, okay, well, obviously you're not ready. So,
Right.
um, I think, I mean, you pretty much said everything I would say. Like, just I just want to see the people training and being a
Right. Yeah.
positive
Like
influence in
trying
the
hard. Just
try.
trying hard. Hey, and I will tell you, like I have belted some guys. I will tell you this. I've belted some guys that are okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I know, at some point, some of my students are going to see this, and I hope, it's not. I hope it ends up not being one of those things where they say, "Is he talking about me?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't even have anybody in mind right now. There's not an image that comes to my mind when I say this. But I've had some students that certainly were not technically at a particular um, the best of the best at this particular belt, even within
Mm-hmm.
the school, but based on where they came from, what they came in with, relative to their physical attributes, relative to their mindset when they came in. If they came in like no confidence
Mm-hmm.
and meek and mild, and they, and there's being humble, but then there's also having no confidence. And to see somebody like that really try hard, totally take
Mm-hmm.
butt whippings in jujitsu and stick to it and get better and more confident as a person. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you're making progress. Like I'm gonna belt that person
Yeah.
for sure.
I don't think students realize like how much time and effort instructors put into like just thinking
Yeah.
about if someone deserves a promotion. A lot of times it's not just your decision. Like you'll talk to the higher bells. Hey, how's this guy doing? Do you think he's ready? You're
Right.
gonna see how they're doing at the tournament, how they do like around other students. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
you just made the decision out of the blue. It's like no, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
took all these things into account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And then have I ever? I will tell you this. I feel like with every student that I've ever belted, that I've never regretted it.
Mm,
I've never, and that doesn't even, like students that may or may not even be training with me anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, I never regretted belting them because I knew when I did it that there was no question about it in my mind. And I
Hmm.
would I would say the same for them too. Like, man, like, am I ready for this? Like he gave me a belt. I don't know if
Yeah.
this was like I don't even care. Like I know that I didn't mean to say I don't care. I I know that they must believe in it too. They have to.
Yeah.
I do. I'm probably even Marcio. Like Marcio, you think about this. I'm his only association. He has no other associations. He could have totally had more associations. He doesn't have that many black belts. He says I am worse than him in promoting. I'm like,
Hmm.
I just have a different level of expectation, I think, than I think I have the same expectation of like you and John and Marcio and probably guys like that. I I don't I don't care if a student leaves me because they're not getting a belted or a stripe at the time that they think that they
Yeah.
should. What's interesting too about jujitsu is it's mostly grown people that do it, and for people to get hung up on fabric
Hmm.
and tape.
I mean, kids do too, but I mean,
Yeah,
of course,
but for adults too. It's a little weird.
Adults, yeah. Well, yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy to me. I mean, you see guys, and Alec, you could probably think of some right now. And I know this has happened with legit guys too. And when I say legit, I'm just talking about good. But guys that like will leave a team or instructor because they're not happy about when they get their belt, and then they go like to another team and they get their belt within like,
Yeah, it's right
I
the
mean,
next day.
like the next day. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's pretty. I would never feel good about that.
Hmm.
I would never feel good about that ever.